Part 47. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Chi Wen. Chapter 465. What about us? Yahweh replied, the Ice Frost Empire has three strongest kings. The empire that was originally willing to ally with us has now broken its agreement and remained neutral. The strongest kings that my grandfather can invite, including my brother, are at most three. The situation is quite bad. Wang Shuo felt that he must be prepared to run away at any time. Part of my Ye family bloodline has been dispersed, but these people who are stranded outside will definitely be hunted down, so they must be protected by local forces. I am very moved that these brothers can come in person. If Sky City can't be defended, it may be God's will. The three of them talked until midnight, and Yahweh immediately ordered someone to arrange a good side hall for Wang Shuo to rest. Accompanied by the palace maids, Wang Shuo came to an exquisite courtyard. The courtyard was brightly lit. Wang Shuo entered the house, his eyes fixed, and found the back of a girl. Wang Shuo was wondering secretly. It was impossible for that maid to stand proudly in the hall in the middle of the night. Wang Shuo looked at the back and felt familiar for a moment, but he seemed to have no impression. After all, the backs of beautiful girls are all the same. Excuse me, girl, Wang Shuo asked softly. The girl turned around, and her fair and slightly plump face looked a little rosy under the candlelight. Wang Shuo was struck by lightning and stood there for a while. The long-lost heartbeat made his breathing quicken. Yeshwer. Wang Shuo thought that he might meet Yeshwer when he came to the Sky City, but he didn't expect to meet in this way. As early as when Master Tong Chui sent someone to invite Wang Shuo, he found Yeshwer and asked her if she knew Wang Shuo, and talked about the importance of Wang Shuo to the crisis of the Sky City. Before Master Tong Chui could explain in detail, Yeshwer agreed to meet Wang Shuo. Wang Shuo, long time no see. Yeshwer smiled. The next morning, Yeshwer took Wang Shuo to tour the entire Sky City. The close combat atmosphere of the war did not affect Wang Shuo's good mood. But Yeshwer seemed to be saying goodbye to the city where she had lived for more than 20 years. She knew in her heart that after this battle, Sky City would never be the same again. Wang Shuo, if possible, I still hope you can help Sky City to withstand this crisis. Yeshwer bit her lips and said with some sadness. She also knew Wang Shuo's strength, and she knew that he had already established a Vanna Empire comparable to the Frost Empire. Wang Shuo looked at Yeshwer's pretty face and said helplessly, it is difficult for me to change the current situation of the Frost Empire. I can only promise that I will treat the Ye family who moved to the Vanna Empire well. Wang Shuo stood on an observation deck, looking at the prosperity of Sky City, and his heart was also a little more lonely. The rise and fall of dynasties is like the cycle of heaven. Perhaps the Vanna Empire cannot escape this fate. A few days later, the Parthian Empire and the Truni Empire seemed to be ready. Wang Shuo also put on his armor and came to the city wall. Master Tong Chui and Yahweh, as well as several other strongest kings, gathered together. Looking at the millions of troops under the city, Wang Shuo was still calm. Wang Shuo had seen this kind of scene many times. Unlike before, Wang Shuo was very relaxed. After all, he was not defending his own territory. It would be best if he could win, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. He could just take Yeshwer back to the Vanna Empire. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Chi Wen. Chapter 466. Wang Shuo noticed that the army of the Truni Empire was almost full of undead soldiers, and the highest commander was a woman. Wang Shuo was a little unsure whether she was Queen Anna. After getting the affirmation from Master Tong Chui, Wang Shuo was eager to try. Wang Shuo knew very well that Queen Anna must not like him. At that time, he was almost killed by her clone, and the two had a grudge long ago. Flags were flying and drums were beating. Emperor Andrei of the Parthian Empire walked out of the crowd. Kings upstairs, in order to avoid the destruction of lives, why don't our kings fight each other? As long as you defeat us, we will withdraw our troops. How about that? Andrei had a good idea. A crippled empire would be much less valuable. If they could defeat all the masters on the opposite side, then they would win the battle directly. There were 10 strongest kings on their side, and there were several more in secret. When they attacked by surprise, they would definitely be able to catch the other side in one fell swoop. Yahweh felt very uncomfortable at this time. He was directly challenged by the opponent. If he did not respond, his morale would be low, and the soldiers on both sides would laugh at him. If he accepted the challenge, he felt that he had no confidence at all. Don't worry, we will fight one-on-one, absolutely fair. Andrei added fuel to the fire and teased. Yahui's face turned pale. Wang Shuo didn't care. At this moment, he was not the head coach, so it was not convenient for him to interrupt. He just had to follow Yahui's arrangements. Yahweh turned his head and looked at several kings, and asked the 3 shuras in an inquiring tone, 3, what do you think about this? As we all know, the Shura king has the ceiling of all kings in terms of combat power. These 3 shuras, in theory, can fight 1 against 2. Of course, it is not ruled out that some well-known and ruthless people in their prime also have the strength to compete with shuras. These 3 shuras are Wangshuo, the red-eyed shura, Zhao Kai, the masked shura, and Wu Jin, the green sword shura. Wangshuo and these 2 people have no intersection. In the past few days, he has only met them once, so he is not sure about their strength. Yet Wang, I think the other side is too arrogant. We should teach them a lesson. I have no problem dealing with 1 or 2 of them. Of course, the final decision still depends on you. Zhao Kai looked at Wang Shuo and Wu Jin intentionally or unintentionally. This kind of battle is very serious and will directly affect the final result of this battle. Yahweh had to be cautious. In the melee, if one side kills the other side first, the advantage will be expanded. It can be said that one careless move will lead to a complete loss. I don't care. Wu Jin spread his hands. Wang Shuo certainly can't admit defeat, and he has 3 helpers. I can fight. Yahweh thought again and again, gritted his teeth, and said, let's do it. If we can't win, we must quickly retreat into the formation. He said this not entirely for the safety of everyone. If the city's defense barrier is not broken, the other side will become a living target if they attack rashly, which is extremely beneficial to the defenders. As long as a king takes action, no matter how many people attack from the opposite side, it will be useless. Then, he came to the edge of the city wall and said to Andrei, Andrei, think about it carefully. If you lose, there will be no regrets. Come on. Yahweh, I have long wanted to fight you. In this battle, both sides gathered more than 20 of the strongest kings. It can be said that after the Battle of Xinwu City, the battle with the largest number of kings on both sides. Wang Shuo and others flew down from the city wall. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Chi Wen. Chapter 467. No matter what profession you are in, once you are promoted to the strongest king, you will gain the ability to fly for a short time. Of course, it is still impossible to travel long distances by flying, because the consumption of long-term flying is very huge. In the opposite camp, a group of kings also walked out. Queen Anna walked in front of Wang Shuo intentionally or unintentionally. Wang Shuo also had this intention, and couldn't help but smile. Some time ago, Wang Shuo was still wondering that the Great Hui domain had been exposed for a while, and this Queen Anna had not come to trouble him, which was obviously not in line with her ruthless style. Now it seems that she should be too busy to take care of herself, and the Truni Empire should also be constantly at war, so she has no time to take care of herself. Oh, the little friend back then has become a king now. Awesome, awesome, Queen Anna smiled and her voice was soft. But Wang Shuo felt a chill. Because Anna is a humanoid spider. Although it has a human torso, it has 8 legs behind it. Anna can also put away her extra legs and become a normal person. But obviously, she doesn't like to do this. Wang Shuo shrugged his nose, pouted and said, "Queen Anna, you look so ugly." Wang Shuo's seemingly indifferent words were like a drop of water in a hot pot. Anna instantly exploded and let out a shrill howl. Squeak. Before the sound disappeared, Anna launched an attack. Wang Shuo heard the howl and was briefly absent-minded. It turned out that Anna's howl was accompanied by a mental attack. But it didn't have much effect on Wang Shuo. Wang Shuo also drew out the Shura demon-breaking spear, erected it on the ground, and then kicked it with his right foot. The long spear swung in the air until the tip of the spear was facing Anna. Wang Shuo moved his feet and rushed towards Anna quickly. As the strongest king, Wang Shuo also had the Shura bonus, so he was not afraid at all, even though Anna was an old monster from 1000 years ago. And the other strongest kings also fought with their respective opponents. Yehweh and Andre clashed their swords, each took a step back, and then rushed towards each other again. Every time Wang Shuo attacked, a dragon-shaped phantom would be attached. The dragon-shaped phantom of the ordinary big move was much more powerful than before. Each attack could repel one of Anna's spider legs. This shocked Anna. Strength really has nothing to do with age. Anna had put away her contempt. Suddenly, Anna howled again, and then the 8 spider legs behind her flew towards Wang Shuo like 8 sharp short spears. The sound of breaking through the air sounded, and even sound waves were generated. Wang Shuo's pupils suddenly shrank, and his expression was serious. It seemed that Anna had used some powerful skills. Wang Shuo was not too worried about how much damage this attack could cause him. After all, there was absolute defense and blocking of fatal blows. Wang Shuo wanted to try whether he could use a spear to block this powerful move. In a very short time, Wang Shuo used 4 skills in succession, directly attacking the yellow dragon, flying dragon in the sky, dragon out of the sea and dragon strike. After practicing dragon spear art to the peak, Wang Shuo was able to use these skills very easily. The 8 bone spears were knocked away one by one. Anna looked at her skills and was easily blocked by Wang Shuo, and became even more angry. The 8 spider legs that had just been broken quickly grew out again, exactly the same as before, still shining with a cold light. She shot out countless spider silks again, trying to tie up Wang Shuo. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Qi Wen. Chapter 468. Wang Shuo naturally knew the horror of spider silk, and he had suffered a great loss from spider silk before. But the current Wang Shuo is not the same Wang Shuo as before. He moved quickly to avoid the attacking spider silk. Anna could not tie Wang Shuo up, and she finally gave up the idea. Wang Shuo rushed up again and fought with Queen Anna in close combat. At this moment, the strongest king hiding in the army of the Parthian Empire secretly observed the battle situation and was ready to launch a sneak attack at any time. The strongest king of the enemy deliberately stretched the battlefield wide. As the fight went on, Wang Shuo found that there were only himself and the enemy around him. Unknowingly, he had entered the center of the enemy. Although fighting in the enemy army, the aftermath of the battle can kill some low-level soldiers, which can be said to be disadvantageous to the enemy. For the strongest king, low-level soldiers are no different from ants. It is very simple to get out of their encirclement, after all, the king can fly. But Wang Shuo felt that something was wrong with this matter. Because there were a few faint and looming auras of powerful people around. Wang Shuo was ready to release his 3 pets at any time. Among the enemies, 3 more strongest kings can definitely have an unexpected effect. It can even play a decisive role in the battle situation. At this moment, Wang Shuo saw Ye Hui stand up and fly quickly towards the city wall. On the ground, the two strongest kings also flew up and chased Ye Hui. There is an ambush. Wang Shuo vaguely heard Ye Hui say. Looking at Queen Anna, who was close at hand, Wang Shuo wondered if he could kill her if he united with 3 pets. This thought kept flashing in Wang Shuo's mind. But in the end, Wang Shuo gave up. Queen Anna must have a way to save her life. How could an old monster who has lived for thousands of years be killed so easily? Wang Shuo thought of his absolute defense and resurrection coins. At this time, other people in the camp also began to retreat to the city wall. Suddenly, a spear as thick as an arm shot out from the enemy camp and aimed at Ye Hui. Wang Shuo was shocked. He was careless. Andre was too shameless. He tricked Ye Hui off the city wall and then started to beat him up and attack him. Now he was shooting cold arrows. Come to think of it, if he killed the enemy's supreme commander, it would be at least half the victory, not to mention the immediate victory in combat power. Wang Shuo wanted to get up and rescue. He, your opponent is me, don't be distracted. Queen Anna turned into 8 legs and looked like a monster. When Ye Hui was about to enter the barrier, he was pierced by a spear and was seriously injured. His life and death were uncertain. Wang Shuo and other kings also began to retreat. In this battle of kings, the Frost Empire was completely defeated. Ye Hui was seriously injured. Although he saved his life, he had no strength to fight again. Except for the 3 Shuras, everyone else was seriously injured, and even the strongest king fell. Wang Shuo guessed that the other party should be using the strategy of delaying against the 3 Shuras. As for the king of the Frost Empire, they tried their best to kill him. It must be said that this approach is quite clever. The conventional siege battle unfolded, and countless shells fell on the barrier. The appearance of this ultra-long-range weapon directly wiped out the absolute advantage of the defenders. At this time, most people would choose to fight to the death with the other party under the city wall. Of course, this is when both sides think they can win. Listening to the crackling sound of shells, and watching Ye Hui's command in circles, Wang Shuo couldn't help shaking his head. It would be strange if this didn't fail. Wang Shuo even felt that Ye Hui's command ability was not as good as Lin Dabiao and Yeti and Buzz. As for Ayub, there is no need to say more. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Chi Wen. Chapter 469. As an invited foreign aide, Wang Shuo couldn't say anything. Because Ye Hui had no intention of handing over the command to others, and at the same time, Wang Shuo didn't know the situation of the Frost Empire's army. Wang Shuo looked for a while and walked out of the hall on the city gate tower. He was now wondering if there was any hope of breaking the deadlock. The number of kings exposed under Andre and Anna was already as many as 15. And the combat power of the high-level generals was simply impossible to count. Wang Shuo estimated that there should be at least more than 200. This was a desperate force. Wang Shuo had no good solution for a while. It would take at least 2 days for the enemy to blast through the defense. The dignitaries in the city kept fleeing, and the Frost Empire did not stop them. The end of the empire, everyone fled when disaster struck. Wang Shuo sighed a little. It was just a simple battle, and the whole country of the Frost Empire believed that it would definitely lose. Before the fight to the death, they gave up completely. Wang Shuo couldn't understand it, but he seemed to understand it. The empire no longer had the vigor and ambition, and no one was willing to stand up and turn the tide. Or rather, no one had the ability to turn the tide. Wang Shuo naturally did not have the leisure to do so. Master Tong Chui found Wang Shuo, who looked a little haggard. Wang Shuo, the empire has no hope, you should take your people away now. What about you? I don't want to leave anymore. Master Tong Chui's voice was a little choked. Wang Shuo's mood was also a little heavy. Is there anything more painful than losing? That is the impending loss. Wang Shuo found Yeshwe'er, and took more than 100 children entrusted to Wang Shuo by the Ye family and stepped onto the teleportation array. At the same time, the other two Shuras also took some people away. Before the barrier was broken, almost all the people in the empire who were qualified to escape had left. A flash of white light, Wang Shuo also led everyone away from the Frost Empire. Along the way, Yeshwe'er seemed very silent. Wang Shuo's caring attitude made the accompanying princes and grandchildren a little unhappy. Their status was much more noble than Yeshwe'er's, and they were direct descendants of the emperor. Seeing Wang Shuo, they didn't even look at them. How could they stand it with their pride? But Wang Shuo didn't care about their feelings. As a dog who lost his home, it was good enough to survive. What else did he want? After passing through several teleportation arrays in succession, some people couldn't stand it and almost fainted. Wang Shuo had to stop temporarily with these burdens. This transit station was called Sifang City. It was a small force, and the city lord was only a high-level warrior. But this place was located in the gap between several empires and belonged to a no-man's land. For the sake of peace between each other, several empires did not choose to annex this place. This also led to countless vicious people wandering here. Wang Shuo took everyone to find an inn. We will rest here for one night and set off early tomorrow morning. At this time, several princes and princesses suggested going out for a walk. They were still very interested in this kind of exotic customs. Yeshwe'er looked at the people and saw that they did not look sad for the destruction of the country, and she did not like them at all. She immediately rejected their invitation. Wang Shuo was naturally not interested in parading with these playboys. After these princes and princesses left, Wang Shuo sent Yeshwe'er back to the room, and then planned to go out alone to understand the local situation. Perhaps he would have to fight with the nearby empire in the future, or not. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Chi Wen. Chapter 470. Walking on the street, the crowds around him were of all kinds and looked very tough. The street vendors were shouting and hawking one after another. Wang Shuo took a look and basically sold various materials and herbs. Wang Shuo wandered around for a while. Although it was novel, there was nothing that could arouse Wang Shuo's interest. Wang Shuo found a tea house at random, ordered a pot of tea, and listened to the storyteller telling anecdotes between various empires. At this time, what Wang Shuo was worried about still happened. This group of dude boys still had a dispute with others. Wang Shuo was on the second floor and saw the two sides fighting in the street. Wang Shuo did not intend to take action. He had to teach this group of dude boys who were arrogant and incompetent a lesson. Even if a few died, it didn't matter, so as not to cause trouble for himself in his own territory. The dude boys all had their own bodyguards. Although they only had the strength of a mid-level general, they were also considered masters. The local snake was beaten up, and Wang Shuo was a little bored and a little expectant. Beating the younger one led to the older one. After a while, the local snake did not disappoint Wang Shuo. 3 intermediate generals appeared on the scene. Wang Shuo was a little surprised. He didn't realize that there were intermediate generals here. Wang Shuo has now begun to focus only on the king-level combat power. He doesn't take this intermediate general into consideration at all. The dude was quickly dealt with. Both sides were restrained and did not kill anyone in the city. Just paid a large sum of money, and the matter was over. Wang Shuo drank tea and watched the show. After both groups left, Wang Shuo got up and went back. As soon as he returned to the inn, someone came to complain, saying that they were bullied. Wang Shuo was secretly happy, it was what he deserved. If you don't restrain your behavior, you will lose your life sooner or later. But Wang Shuo didn't say these words. We are new here, let's not make any more trouble. We will leave tomorrow morning. After Wang Shuo finished speaking, several people could only leave in disappointment. The next morning, Wang Shuo wanted to leave with everyone, but when they arrived at the teleportation array, they were surrounded by the group of people from yesterday. Want to leave? No way. A fat man with a big heart on the opposite side said arrogantly. It's not so easy to beat my brother. Wang Shuo frowned and was a little angry. In this world, there are really such loyal people, and they don't know how high the sky is and how thick the earth is, and their noses are up to the sky. What do you want? Seeing that Wang Shuo didn't stand up for them, the princes were a little scared. What do you want? Kneel down and apologize, and then each person will get 100,000 energy crystals. This fat man is the son of the mayor of Sifang City. He heard about this from his brother yesterday. Seeing that the other party easily took out a large sum of money, he was also worried about having no money to spend, so he planned to blackmail him. Wang Shuo was happy. Well, I met a playboy again. So, like attracts like, and with a few playboys, I always feel like I can meet playboys. Wang Shuo was just planning to see how these princes were going to deal with this matter. If it is handled properly, I don't mind training a few heirs for the family. But among the group of people, no one stood up and took the initiative to take the lead. Wang Shuo was a little disappointed. Although he didn't say anything, isn't it enough for me, the strongest king, to support you? Wang Shuo shook his head and was about to show his trump card and let the other party get out. But at this time, the son of the city lord began to commit suicide. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Qi Wen. Chapter 471. Seeing that there were some good-looking people in the group, he said, keep these women and pay a small amount of money, and forget about it. With that said, he was about to reach out to catch Yeshwe'er. This fat man is very weak, but he is just a top military general. But he dared to do anything in front of several intermediate generals. Moreover, he dared to rob someone without even understanding Wang Shuo's strength. He really didn't know how to live or die. Wang Shuo stomped his foot casually, and a leaf flew up from the ground. Wang Shuo waved his hand, and the leaves were lifted up by the strong energy and slashed towards the arm of the city lord's son. In an instant, a bloody arm fell to the ground. Ah, my hands! The fat man fell to the ground wailing, screaming in pain. The few masters he brought with him were even more upset when they saw this. The son of the city lord had his arm cut off. As bodyguards, this is a very serious matter. Wang Shuo looked at the people rushing up and had no intention of fighting with these servants. He turned to look at the prince's subordinates and said, if you can defeat these people and let me see your abilities, maybe I can give you a chance to change your destiny. These masters naturally knew Wang Shuo's identity and strength, so they immediately stopped keeping a low profile and started fighting with the bodyguards on the opposite side. After a while, a giant dragon rushed over the city carrying the city lord. Who dared to hit my son without opening his eyes? Wang Shuo noticed that this giant dragon was a star-level boss. If he didn't take action, he might not be able to defeat him. The green pterosaur hovered in the sky, putting huge pressure on everyone. A dive. The Sifang city lord came to the teleportation array and felt Wang Shuo's aura. Suddenly the soul was frightened. Seeing the scene in front of him, he already understood what happened. Dad, it was him who cut off my arm. Dad, kill him, kill him. The fat man wailed and cried to his father. The Sifang city lord was so frightened by his son's words that chills ran down his back. This is driving your father to death. This is such a scam. You are the lord of Sifang city, right? Wang Shuo's tone was a bit unkind, with a trace of murderous intent in his eyes. The lord of Sifang city swung and knelt on the ground. The murderous aura released from Wang Shuo's body was something that Sifang City Lord was lucky enough to experience once from a distance when he was young and from a king-level general. This is definitely the king who emerged from the mountain of corpses and sea of blood. Although Sifang City Lord also has the strength of a high-level warrior, his ability to survive to this day is definitely not because of his strength, but because he can assess the situation and know when to give in and when to be tough. The little one is. The Lord of Sifang City knelt down. The jaws of everyone around him dropped. Especially the dudes, they knew that Wang Shuo was very strong, but one sentence that made a high-ranking warrior city lord kneel down still shocked them deeply. Wang Shuo has no interest in this kind of city lord. He just said lightly, "Take care of your son. Also, can we go?" "Of course." He turned to the group of bodyguards behind him and said, "Don't give way yet." Wang Shuo took Yeshua's hand and walked into the teleportation array first. He didn't dare to get up until Wang Shuo and others left. "What the hell, I didn't look at the almanac when I went out today." Then he exploded with momentum and killed everyone present except his son. These people must die, who let them see themselves kneeling. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Qi Wen. Chapter 472. Evil son, after you go back, confine me for 3 years. Sooner or later, I will be killed by you. The Lord of Sifang City was considering whether to train another trumpet at this time. After all, he had many concubines. Wang Shuo returned to Wana City and arranged the people of the Ye family in a small town. As for Yeshua, of course, she lived in the palace built in Wana City. One day, Gilaji came to see Wang Shuo with important information. "Your Majesty, I received a spy report that the Roland Empire and the Mali dynasty have entered into an alliance." Wang Shuo was quite shocked when he heard the news. This move by the two countries was obviously aimed at the Wana Empire. The number of kings in the Wana Empire was exceeding theirs, which made them a little uneasy, so they thought of forming an alliance to fight against the Wana Empire together. Wang Shuo immediately summoned the ministers to discuss. Zhao Bangde immediately said, "Your Majesty, the alliance between the two countries will inevitably attack our country. We should prepare in advance. The national teacher is right, but we may send envoys to test it out and see if we can split their alliance." Prime Minister Zhu Dongheng pondered. Wang Shuo nodded after hearing this. The strength of the Wana Empire has reached the point where it can compete with them, which is not at all weak, but if you want to go to war, you still have to use courtesy before force. Development is the hard truth. As long as you are strong, any means will be futile. Wang Shuo immediately sent Duan Wengzi as a diplomatic envoy to the two countries. On the other hand, Wang Shuo asked Ayub to clean up the army. A few days ago, Ayub finally succeeded in becoming the strongest king. The big stone in Wang Shuo's heart finally fell. Former Tool people like Gong Zheng and Ayub have also recovered their memories. In the past few years, Wang Shuo has treated everyone well, and everyone has worked hard for the empire. 10 days later, Wang Shuo decided to hold a grand military parade. He hadn't inspected his army for a long time. Showing up from time to time would make the army more cohesive. After receiving Wang Shuo's order, Ayub quickly prepared. Today is different from the past. The number of troops in the Wana Empire has reached 8 million. Ayub only selected 1 million people who could participate in the military parade, including 400,000 monsters, and the rest were human. On the high platform, Wang Shuo and a group of senior officials sat down. In the square below, the various legions were arranged in order. Today, the legions of the Wana Empire mainly include the Golden Fire Cavalry directly under Ayub, 50,000 people. Gong Zheng's Rock Shield Guards are 50,000 people, Ye Tianba is in charge, and Wang Shuo's Hell Knights are 50,000 people. Goods Archers, Li Jiangguo's Crossbow Battalion, Gong Kai's Archery Battalion, Li Weiguo's City Defense Army, Xie Xiaofeng's Ayub handed over the monster troops to Lin Dabiao, Lu Haiming, and Zhang Yang. Almost every commander has a main force of 50,000 people under his command, plus a number of reserves. The weapons and equipment are the most advanced at present, and the army is in full bloom. A strong sense of pride rose in Wang Shuo's heart. As long as all the commanders become the strongest kings, the Wana Empire will be invincible. But the idea is beautiful, but the reality is a bit cruel. The commanders who entered the tomb of the king became less smooth in the next few months. Gong Zheng was successfully promoted, but Lin Dabiao, Li Baoqiu, Good, Ba Huoyao, and others who were highly expected by Wang Shuo fell in the tomb of the king. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Qi Wen. Chapter 473. Wang Shuo was sad for a long time because of this. He even stopped sending generals to the tomb of the king for a while. But the remaining people were unwilling to give up and asked Wang Shuo to enter the tomb of the king several times. Wang Shuo carefully examined the strength of the candidates and allowed them to enter. Wang Shuo probably knew that if he was not strong enough, it would be difficult to survive in the tomb of the king. In particular, the final climb to Yaquan Mountain was extremely dangerous. A few months passed. The Vanna Empire has newly promoted several strongest kings, including Zhao Bangde, Zhu Dongheng, Ayub, Gong Zheng, Li Jiangguo, Ye Tianba, Li Weiguo, Gong Kai, Gulji, and Xie Xiaofeng, a total of 10 people, including Wang Shuo and his 3 pets. The Vanna Empire already has 14 strongest kings, and the number of Roland Empire and Mali dynasty combined is less than half of that of the Vanna Empire. The time to send troops to the two countries is gradually ripe. As for weapons and supplies, the Vanna Empire has also mastered advanced catapult technology, which is the siege technology commonly used by the Xinwu Empire. Whether it is field warfare or siege warfare, the technology and command are already available. As long as Wang Shuo gives an order, millions of troops can go to the front line to expand the territory for the empire. Of course, the empire is civilized on the surface, and all the wars it launches are just. For this war, Wang Shuo also has to find a high-sounding excuse. This excuse is the second prince. Wang Shuo immediately announced that he supported the second prince and the seventh prince's brother usurped the throne, which was a great treason. He called on all the heroes in the world to attack him together. Wang Shuo knew that once he did this, he would inevitably stand on the opposite side of countless great empires. But he had fully analyzed the current situation on the Vlandia continent. He was on the edge of the continent, and the empire that had the ability to defeat him was very far away from him. And the large empires nearby were not his opponents at all. Wang Shuo has a natural geographical advantage. The number of masters in the empire has approached the level of the first-level empire. There are many talents and people. The remaining is the right time. Now the world is in chaos, the Xinwu Empire is in name only, and the first-level empires are hindering each other. It is a good time for Wang Shuo to expand his territory. At Wang Shuo's command, the army of the Wana Empire went to the battlefield. This time, the army was divided into 2 groups. One group was led by Ayub to attack the Mali dynasty. And Wang Shuo personally led one group to attack the Roland Empire. The queen of the Roland Empire, Violet, was horrified when she heard the news. As early as the rise of the Wana Empire, she was a little worried, and then she found the Mali dynasty in the northeast of the Wana Empire to form an alliance. It's not that he doesn't want to form an alliance with a higher level dynasty, but others look down on her. At the same time, she is also worried that forming an alliance with a stronger dynasty will easily lead to wolves. But she never dreamed that the Wana Empire would develop so rapidly. In just a few years, it has the strength to crush her. Looking back now, the war with the Waigarian Empire was simply ridiculous. The main generals who conquered the Roland Empire were Gongzheng and Yetianba. Those who conquered the Mali dynasty included Ayub, Zhao Bangde, Li Jiangguo, Xie Xiaofeng, and others. Only the prime minister stayed in the capital, and Wang Shuo only brought 2 people, and the rest followed Ayub to the war. After a month of fierce fighting, Wang Shuo had already reached the head of the Roland Empire. In previous wars, Wang Shuo almost always fought defensive battles. The first large-scale siege made Wang Shuo a little excited. Lord Survival, My Shelter in Crocodile Territory. Author, Qi Wen. Chapter 474. Since Li Jiangguo did not follow Wang Shuo here, Wang Shuo lacked long-range attacks, but Wang Shuo did not panic. He has his own way to break the city. First, he asked Yetianba to come downstairs of the city gate and start calling for formation. After learning the siege methods of the Parthian Empire, Wang Shuo thought it would be a good idea to invite a battle first. It would be great if the Roland Empire was willing to send experts to fight. If they are too afraid to fight, their morale will definitely be low, which can be considered a gain. Yetianba stood under the city gate and shouted at the top of his lungs, "You worms in the Roland Empire, if you can breathe, come down and fight Grandpa." Violet stood on the city gate tower, her face looking very ugly. Because there are currently 3 strongest kings in the empire. They had already investigated clearly that the number of the strongest kings Wang Shuo brought this time was twice as many as theirs. What should I do? She raised her eyes and looked at the general and the commander beside her. Hearing Yetianba's yelling and cursing, the general couldn't bear it. In all these years, he has never experienced such birdiness. You, fight the other side, the general said. In fact, he was not just motivated, but carefully analyzed the current situation. Instead of losing the city and being captured, it is better to fight now and at least die with dignity. What soldiers pursue is to die on the battlefield, and they will definitely not be able to defend it. Although Decima was also a person who had seen strong winds and waves, he was also worried about gains and losses at this time. After all, no one wants to die. He was even considering whether the Vanna Empire would accept surrender. After all, he was also the strongest king. Seeing that Decima didn't speak for a long time, Zi Lulan closed her eyes and had a headache. "Your Majesty, please make a decision early," the general reminded. "Let us surrender." Violet made a painful decision. The general couldn't believe his ears. "Your Majesty actually wants to surrender? Your Majesty, why do you want to surrender?" Decima can understand Violet's thoughts, because he thinks so too. In this world, there is really no point in fighting and killing. It is better to stay away from these fights and live the life you want. Zi Luolan walked to the edge of the city wall and said to Yetianba, "General, please tell your Majesty that the Roland Empire is willing to surrender." Yetianba cursed for a long time, his mouth was dry, and he saw someone finally coming out from the other side to answer. But he didn't expect that what he heard was such a sentence that made him lose control. In his mind, this Violet Empire can be said to be good at conquering and fighting, and its military strength cannot be underestimated. He is just about to show off his skills and have a hearty battle. As a result, the other party surrendered. This made him a little unhappy. But since the matter was serious, he did not dare to make the decision without authorization. "Are you Violet? Can you represent the Roland Empire?" Yetianba asked with some suspicion. "Exactly, go and tell your Majesty that we are willing to surrender, but we are not allowed to kill the people in the city." Yetianba told Wang Shuo in the big tent in the distance about the news. Wang Shuo was startled, and then a smile appeared on his face. It's possible to have such an unexpected surprise. As soon as His Majesty showed his domineering aura, he immediately made his opponent surrender. Yetianba also flattered him. Wang Shuo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Since they surrender sincerely, let's accept it reluctantly. Ah! Ha ha ha.